Guys, Mr. Bowman here. Today's learning objective is in orange, and we are learning to understand why quadratic equations have two solutions. So I suppose there's two key parts to today's learning objective. The first is that idea of a quadratic equation. And if you think of what we've been looking at before, so we focused largely on linear equations up to today's video, linear equations. And that are equations, for example, where 3 is equal to 4x plus 1. I don't know, maybe 3x minus 4 is equal to 7, 2x plus 1. And what makes these linear equations is the idea it's just an x by itself. And another way to put it is there's no power to that x. What we're going to be doing today in our next few little videos, we're going to be shifting onto something called quadratic equations. And these are types of equations. They're not linear, but we're beginning to introduce powers to these unknowns. And so some examples, let's have a look. X squared plus 5x plus 6 equals 0. So you can see there's an x squared as part of this equation. You could have something like 3x squared equals negative 10x. Again, you can see some x squareds, and it could also actually be these double brackets here. Let's say that's equal to 7, because when you expand this, you're going to get x times x, which is going to create that x squared part of it. So quadratic equations, they're equations which involve x squared. And these equations with an x squared are really, really interesting. And there's new skills or new strategies we need to be aware to solve these equations. And the thing I'm looking to emphasize today is this last part, up to two solutions. So when you look at a linear equation, every time we've solved these types of equations, there's always been one answer. And that's just the feature of linear ones. Linear means straight line, and at every point there's one particular solution. And quadratic equations, something we need to be aware of, there's actually up to two solutions. So we've got up to two solutions. And what I mean by that is there might be, most time likely there's going to be two solutions. Sometimes there might be one solution, and other times there might be zero solutions as well. So there could be 0, 1, or 2 answers. And we need to know how to solve that. So the final bit of today's video, I'm just going to change pen color for this last bit. Let's get into yellow. Is we just want to understand, well, why are there up to two solutions for quadratics? And so just noting, for example, this basic equation here, x squared equals 9. Our goal is normally to get the x by itself, so let's square root both sides. So x is equal to the square root of 9. And then at this point here, I'm going to ask you, what times what equals 9? And most of you are going to tell me 3. But I don't want you to forget about negative 3. So quadratics involving an x squared, there's normally a positive version of an answer, and there's this negative version of the answer, which sometimes might slip our minds. And that's where this idea of two answers, two solutions come back, because a square root has two answers. So square roots slash squares have two answers. So guys, hopefully that last bit gives us a bit of an understanding as to why these new types of equations we're looking at have two answers. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Now let's move on to the next topic. There'll be no questions for this particular learning objective.